Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup coming to you live. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am the news editor for the Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and content creator and social media manager for the Cradle, Sima Itaim. And as usual, before we start, just a friendly reminder to make sure to hit that like button as soon as you arrive, to leave a comment, to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. We are very close to reaching 50,000 subscribers over the past couple of days. We've gotten like 2,000 extra subscribers, which I'm sure came from the great interview that our colleague Sharmin Arwani had with Professor Mohamed Marandi, which you can also check out on our YouTube here. Very, very interesting interview, very timely as well, given the situations which we are about to discuss. And also a friendly reminder to, well, first of all, check our subscriptions here on YouTube. But above all, as usual, check out our Patreon, where you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle. We have gotten, we keep walking towards our goal of 1,000 subscribers within the next few weeks, and our larger goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're doing a Patreon drive here at the Cradle. We need your support to continue doing the work that we do here. Please support independent journalism. And to all of those new subscribers, welcome, welcome, and thank you so much for joining. And be ready to receive all of the great content that we continue to put here at the Cradle. I think there's a new interview coming up today. I remember Charmin was talking about it, guys, or I don't know when that can be expected.
يعني tomorrow or after tomorrow it will be published.
Okay, perfect. So in the next couple of days, make sure to turn on the notifications. You will be seeing a new interview by the great Charmin Arwani. But I think with that being said, guys, let's get into it. The drums of war are banging ever louder. The USS Abraham Lincoln and the guided missile destroyers that accompany it have reportedly entered CENTCOM's theater of operations in the Indian Ocean. As Donald Trump has claimed that he's sending a whole armada to defend the protesters of Iran. And my God, will we need to discuss exactly this framing in a minute. But before that, well, there's been the latest reports are that, in particular, the United Arab Emirates, the foreign ministry, put out a communique saying we will not allow our airspace or our territory to be used to launch attacks against Iran, while at the same time there's reports that Saudi Arabia and Qatar have issued similar statements, although not publicly. This completely contradicts with a report on Israel Hayom a few hours ago that said that most of Israel's Arab allies are going to be joining in the attack against Iran, or at the very least are being pressured into joining the imminent attack that the U.S. is preparing to launch in defense of Israel, in defense of the peaceful protesters. You know how it is. So the question really here is who's going to join and who's not going to join? Who can we believe? Who we can't believe? I mean, we saw last time, right, during the 12-day war, that essentially everyone joined in to the not so much to the attack against Iran, but more to the defense of Israel, right? Like Iranian missiles were being shot down from Saudi Arabia through Syria, through Iraq, across
Jordan.
through Jordan. Exactly. You saw so many instances of this, and now it's not. I mean, it's something to be expected, right? While at the same time, Iran has really increased its threats, its the wording, the strength of its words, by essentially saying, and I think Professor Marandi said it as well in the interview he did here in our channel, Iran is ready to wipe out the energy supplies or of the Persian Gulf and to close the Strait of Hormuz if the United States launches this war, which now they recognize, and I mean Iran in this case, they recognize that is an existential threat. There's also new announcements from the resistance forces in the region, but I want to hear from you guys first. What do you make of the arrival of the USS Abraham Lincoln, and what do you make of these reports from about who may or may not be joining this war against Iran?
Yeah, I mean, before my opinion here, it's important to keep in mind that regardless of who says they will allow their airspace or territory to be used
Karim,
for
can you
attacks
shut off your
against
microphone?
Iran.
I'm so sorry, Sima, to cut you off, just because
Oh,
you're
that's
echoing.
okay.
Go ahead,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry,
That's
guys.
much better.
So, yeah, regardless of who says that they will allow for Washington to use their airspace and territory and who claims that they won't allow, there are countries that are just embedded into the system no matter what they say. And those are, of course, countries like Qatar and Jordan. Just when it comes to the build-up, a few things, but this is subject by change. So there's been a very clear acceleration in U.S. and allied military activity across West Asia. And none of this confirms 100% imminent strike. Everybody is seeming to agree that it's pointing in that direction. It could be a matter of days. So according to what's available, publicly available data, like flight tracking data, open source intelligence, U.S. Air Force airlift activity has surged. On Saturday alone, at least 9 C-17A heavy transport aircraft were observed operating across the region. Since January 18, over 40 C-17 flights have been recorded moving into or through key hubs, and this includes Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, Cyprus, of course, Diego Garcia, and Oman. Okay, these are not exactly routine rotations. The C-17s are used to move troops, armored vehicles, missile systems, and logistics. So what's notable also is the geographic spread. The aircraft are cycling through Qatar's Al Udeid base and the Muwafaq Salti base, I forgot how to pronounce that, in Jordan, Ali Salim in Kuwait, and the RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, of course. These all remain, include also the Diego Garcia, as I mentioned, which remain Washington's, main platform. So several flights are also linking to the Indo-Pacific, directly into the West Asia theater. And we're seeing tanker movements that suggest sustained readiness. KC-135 refueling aircraft have been active. And there is basically, like, from what I understood, refueling assets don't usually move like this unless planners are keeping multiple contingencies open.
Yeah.
At the same time, the Israeli air activity has intensified. There's Israeli Air Force refueling tankers, Gulfstream G550 ISR and ELINT platforms, and other intelligence aircraft operating over the North and Eastern Mediterranean. And this is the kind of pattern that you see when surveillance is being kept at a high tempo. There's also maritime signal, which there was what is called U.S. Navy CMV 22B Osprey, call sign Rudy 11, observed landing in Oman, a flight pattern consistent with operations tied to the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. And that strike group, as you just mentioned, has been moving, towards the region. So meanwhile, Iran has issued has suspended all VFR and general aviation flights until April 25, allowing only military, government, SAR, and oil sector helicopter flights with prior authorization. So there's airspace tightening, you could say. There's anticipation there. So this changes by the minute. Weather alone changes these things. It alters flight volumes overnight, and a lot of things don't show up on public trackers. But everyone's sitting around gathering what they can about this. And the point is that this also comes with a concerted push of more atrocity propaganda, like Time Magazine's latest protester death toll of 30,000, and exiled monarchist Iranian media, Iran International, citing death toll as high as 36,000, which is not even physically possible, as far as I'm concerned. Now, the Iranian government has released numbers as somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000. I also, based on my assessment, do believe that those numbers are, that the Iranian government is downplaying those numbers, and it could be somewhere around 5,000, certainly not 10,000 or anywhere near above 10,000. So I just wanted to say that there's a build-up. There's all this psychological warfare in Israeli and US media. There's a lot of people on Twitter coming up with all kinds of theories. And there is the atrocity propaganda, which kind of died down for a few days, and now we see it coming back. I want to just jump in very quickly here, Sima, because I think it's very clear, to anybody with a shred of honesty in themselves, that this is an attempt to paint the Iranian Republic, the Islamic Republic, as if they're committing a genocide, right? Like all of a sudden, you keep seeing these numbers go up day by day. Yesterday was 10,000, today's 20,000, tomorrow it'll be 30,000. By Friday, we're going to be talking about 100,000. I mean, they are going to be talking about 100,000. By the time the US and Israel attack, they're going to be saying, Iran has killed more people
than those killed in Gaza. I have no doubt about this. This is to
Well,
obviously
yeah.
downplay Israeli crimes in Gaza and then to
Exactly.
whitewash them. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. That the thing is, first of all, it's an insult to the innocents who did die by skewing numbers, and number two, it is, in my opinion, an insult to the people of Gaza, as if
Completely.
almost to openly mock them by coming out with numbers like this in the tens
And let
of
me
thousands.
just give
Absolutely
you-
obscene.
Just give you one number that I want our viewers to stay with. Al Jazeera has just reported that Israel killed every single member of 2,700 families in Gaza. 2,700 bloodlines eradicated, wiped off the face of the earth. And this is on top of over 6,000 families that have been left with a single survivor for 6,000 families. This is what it's trying to be whitewashed. These are the crimes that the Israeli occupation has continued to commit day in and day out in Gaza. And now, of course, Western media, in their never-ending quest for the truth, continues to reframe, continues to whitewash, and continues to try to portray the Iranian protest, or the crackdown on the protest, as a genocide. Right? I'm sure they'll call it that soon enough.
It's, yeah, I mean, putting Iran on the same level as Israel, and they used to do that with Bashar al-Assad. I mean, they would say like Bashar al-Assad and Netanyahu are both as bad as each other, and they always try to do the same thing with Iran, and it's honestly insulting to compare the Iranian government's actions, even with its history of crackdowns, to Israel. It's honestly like one of the most unhinged parallels that people can draw. They did it with Bashar al-Assad as well, and it's just, for me, something that is not done, to be honest.
It's I mean, as you said it, Sim, is atrocity propaganda. It's downplaying the suffering of people, including obscuring the reality of the Iranian people and their suffering. Right? Like, they're suffering under sanctions, they're suffering under constant threats of war, they're suffering under a drought that is also being used for geopolitical purposes. Everything has to fit into this vision of warmongering, right? Of protecting Israel's right to self-defense, the threat that Iran poses. And then on top of everything, and not to verge too far away from the topic here, the USS Abraham Lincoln arrives to CENTCOM's theater of operations to defend these protesters, right? That's the framing. At the same time, as you have the US Gestapo, Donald Trump's secret police, ICE, murdering US citizens on the street, executing them extrajudicially. And then the victims of these killings are called terrorists, they're called insurrectionists, they're called so many different names. These are not peaceful protesters like the ones in Iran, which we have seen were heavily armed, were causing chaos left and right. We have heard, again, I'll point you to the interview with Mohamed Marandi. It was very illuminating in many senses. So, it's just something to always keep in mind about the level of depravity that we're talking about when we're talking about these the Anglo-Zionist empire. What do you think, Karim?
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, the point is that Iran is an evil country, and if you protest there, even if you kill government personnel and innocents, you're protesting for the good. And the United States is like how can I say it? The United States, they are like, first Trump thinks that God sent him to protect the people of the United States and the world. So anything that happens against Trump is like coming from the devil. And these numbers are still, Sima is saying still 22,000, they said.
Oh, it's 36,000 now.
36.
Tomorrow it will be 50.
I'm waiting for the number to reach 6 million. Then we'll see. We'll see what will happen. Okay, let's be serious. First, our title asks who will join the United States. The point is that I don't think any Gulf country, including, of course, Kuwait, who nobody talks about it, but it has also around 10,000 American soldiers there. You have UAE, you have Qatar, and you have Sultanate Oman. I don't think any of these countries can prevent the United States from doing anything. And imagine you have a base in Qatar, for instance, and you want to take off or to use a radar against Iran. I don't think Qatar, Tamim, the Emir of Qatar, will call them, please stop, or I will do. He can't say it. I will do what? He can't do anything. Yani what can he do? Same go to the UAE. The same goes to even Kuwait and Iraq. If the United States wants to launch anything from Al-Assad base or any base in Iraq, who will stop them? Yani we're talking about Iraq. They have 40 million, and the parliament and the people went to the streets and protested against the United States. And since 3-4 years, the parliament asked the United States to leave the country, and they didn't leave. So I don't think these countries have anything to say or anything to do to prevent the Americans, except I think Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is huge, and Saudi Arabia is like, if you combine all these countries, Saudi Arabia is more important than these countries. But I think if the United States uses any of these countries that I mentioned, politically there will be no effect. Yani for instance, Iraq will not like shut down the U.S. embassy, or UAE will stop like investing or letting the Americans or Brits invest in their countries. These countries are very weak. They don't have the means to stop the United States. That's one. And the other part is that who said that these countries don't want to see the fall of Iran? Well, these countries worked tirelessly for years and years to fight Iran. They fought Iran in Lebanon, they fought Hezbollah, and the dirtiest people are going now on TV talking about against Hezbollah, even though everybody in the rest of the world respects Hezbollah because of what they did to the Palestinians. These people are still on the paycheck of the Gulf countries. You know what I mean? They went to Syria, and they said it, the prime minister or the ex-prime minister of Qatar said, we paid around $500 million just for soldiers to stop being soldiers in the army, and we paid like, I forgot the number, but it's online and people can see it, it's an interview. And they paid more for generals of the Syrian army to go out of the Syrian army. They did this. And they did this to please the United States and to please to please Israel. And imagine, just let us think about what happened in Syria. They funded and created ISIS and created people that like decapitate people, and we all saw it. And this was a very, very terrible thing for Islam and for our history and our region. And they saw it, and they continue to do it, just because Assad is with Iran and against Israel. So I don't trust any of these countries. I even go further than that. I think these people are willing to even pay the United States the weapons that will be used against Iran, especially Qatar and UAE and Kuwait and Iraq. They have nothing. They have money, but politically they don't pay. They don't have this tradition. You know what I mean? Saudi Arabia and other countries, they have this tradition. And if you want to go historically, to go a few decades back, this is a very important thing also. During or following the revolution in Iran in 1979, in the same year, Saddam Hussein took over or became the ultimate leader of Iraq, and the two countries went to a 9-year war, which is called in history the 1 million murdered war. 1 million Iraqis and Iranian died in this war, and it ended in the early 90s. It ended in 1989 or 1990. Just a few years later, the United States in 1991, they made the first Gulf War. And every single country participated in the war except Iran. And then in 2003, when they invaded Iraq and killed 1 million because Colin Powell went with a flask or whatever,
with a pile of sand. With a pile of sand.
Yeah, a pile of sand. And they killed 1 million people. Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, every single country participated in bombing Iraq except Iran, although the country that was like يعني not completely, but partially destroyed, especially in its western side is Iran, and they refuse. So these countries have nothing to say, and they don't have any means to counter the United States or to pressure the United States not to use their land, let alone them telling the United States, okay, take this money, bomb Iran more. Because for them, they want to lead the region, although we saw that the vacuum that Hezbollah and Syria and Iran created following October 7 was taken by Turkey and by Israel and not by any Arab country.
Guys, everyone who's here now, make sure to hit that like button. We have about 230 people watching, but we're still stuck at around 120 likes. It's free. Nobody's gonna know that you hit like,
if you liked if you liked what I said, hit like the like button. If no, also hit the like
Exactly.
button.
Yeah, also hit. Show us your support in any case. Thank you
I
for
just
everyone
wanted
being here. Sorry, Sima, to cut you off just because there's an interesting question here that I don't think we can answer completely, but I think it's something that we can keep in mind for other, even the interview shows. I lost it. Hold on. Soulstar says, I would like an opinion on the financial side of all of these. Wars are costly. The US is broke. We need an economic expert. This is very, very true to dissect what could happen. And you know what I can tell you is we are hearing that there's going to be another US government shutdown over the ICE violence. And the last shutdown, the U.S. never, the government refused to release, the number of layoffs or like the economic data for the time in which there was a shutdown, which was just a few months ago. So now if they do it again, I mean, the coffers are open for Donald Trump. He wants a $1.5 trillion budget, but I think it's a good point. During the 12-day war, we saw them go through so many of their air defenses that one has to wonder what exactly is the plan here. So I think it's a great suggestion. I think something we will keep in mind on.
Yeah, I think for the Rock the Cradle interview format, one of the goals is definitely to bring on an economist to dissect all of this stuff. So you guys should stay tuned for that because it will be on the way. Soon.
Yes.
For Karim, I agree with him. And the thing is, even if the countries now had a change of heart and said, we don't want to do this, they don't have a choice. But the funny thing is that we've recently been seeing all these reports of the Gulf Cooperation Council lobbying, primarily Saudi, Qatar, Oman, and even the UAE, actively lobbying to try and get Trump to not strike Iran. And it's like, well, it's too late now, isn't it? I mean, if that's really the case, that they actually... like these countries, after, let's say, post-Israel bombing Qatar, things shifted, let's pretend.
I remembered something very funny, you will continue, but to my point, there's even reports that said that the bases in Qatar were used to bomb Qatar. So imagine what they can do.
No, exactly. But so the thing is, so now we have all of this, but listen, in reality, the Gulf countries in the region do not want Iran to fall, because it would be bad for them for several reasons, regional chaos, security risks, retaliations, economic reasons, economic interests, uncertainty of successors, like if the Shah, which I don't believe the Shah's son, the exiled Crown Prince, could ever take the place of the Islamic Republic, but let's say he did, the Gulf countries do not want this Persian nationalist ambitions in the region. There's competition. I mean, there's a million things, but even if it's true that now they feel that it's a threat to their security if Iran falls, they spent the last decades working actively to contribute to Iran's fall. So if this is true, it's very difficult to believe. But if this is true, I don't believe it. I mean, at the end of the day, it could be that, okay, they don't want Trump to strike Iran, but that doesn't mean they don't want Iran to fall. They would just rather a more gently engineered fall of Iran. Like maybe they're afraid of the retaliation of Iran. They don't want economic, consequences. They don't want security, whatever it is. Like what Saudi Arabia has done, Saudi Arabia alone, like forget everyone else. What Saudi Arabia has done when it comes to cooperating with Israel, even if it's just media alone, forget everything else, just media alone against Iran. If Saudi Arabia now has like changed its tune, for me, it's too late. You know what I mean? So even if it's true, and it's very well possible, and then also there's the question of who's paid more money to Trump, who's given more gifts. I mean, is it Miriam Adelson and her friends, or is it Qatar and Saudi Arabia? Who wins there?
I mean, the Qataris and the Saudis pledged like trillions last year.
Well, yeah, well then let's see if they can, if they really are lobbying to get Trump to not strike Iran.
The first Jewish president in U.S. history, as they proclaimed him. I think we know pretty clear where his priorities lie. Thank you so much to Thomas Milne Mile for their super chat. Thank you so much for your generosity. We had another super
Thank
chat
you so
earlier.
much,
Thank you
Shams.
so much. Thank you so very much. Look, there's other angles to this whole situation, right? There's also, like, as everyone keeps pointing out, gold right now is through the roof. And we have seen that U.S. Treasuries are being bought up by vassal states, by Japan, UK, etc., while everyone else is trying to get rid of them. So there's this obvious, sell America market, as they like to say in the financial publications. So that therein lies the question, right? Like, where exactly is going to come all this money going to come from? What is the promise here? And also, I think we need to always keep in mind what happened in Venezuela at the start of this year, just a few weeks ago. Because what happened in Venezuela, it might be the blueprint moving forward for these, U.S. interventions, U.S. wars of liberation, whatever they might want to call them, which is essentially decapitation, right? They are in love with that word, with decapitation, and forcing the remains of the regime to work for you, right? In the case of Venezuela, is at gunpoint. It's gunboat diplomacy. You do what we say, or we're going to continue to. Just going to kill you, right? We kidnap Maduro, but we're going to kill the rest of you if you don't do as we say. In Iran, I don't know if they can impose that same reality, but we did see them go into Caracas and shut down air defenses. Like, Trump is bragging about this now. He's bragging about, like, hey, we have this technology. He's bragging about the sonic weapon that they had deployed years earlier in Havana when they were calling it the Havana syndrome, and they were blaming the Russians for causing, all of this neurological damage to their diplomatic staff in Havana. And now they're saying we used that in Venezuela, and the Venezuelans and the Cubans who survived the attack are saying the same. They're saying they use a weapon that completely incapacitated us, that completely, caused our heads feel like they were going to explode, or for us to start bleeding from the nose. And then all of our systems were shut off, nothing worked. And just one last thing to also keep in mind. Did they do the same in Qatar last year? Because I remember the Qataris, after the attack on Doha, were saying we never saw the missiles or the planes on the radar. We didn't know an attack was coming until they hit our bases. So in that case, maybe easier, for the US to shut down their own systems. But they're obviously working with technology that we are not familiar with. And also, at the same time, Iran has deployed their own, new technology, so to speak, when they shut down Starlink. So many things are still up in the air, across the board.
We have some colleagues here in the office who do not believe any of the nonsense about the sonic weapon. I totally believe it. They're like, no, the US just likes to scare people. But the thing is, like, we're seeing more and more about it every day. So it's not something new. It's something that's been around for ages. Usually when something is deployed, it means it's already been around for over like a decade, if not 2 decades.
I believe it because I've seen the interviews with the Venezuelan and the Cuban soldiers in which they talk about this. Before,
Didn't
the
Trump
US even
also talk
admitted
about it after the Venezuelans and the Cubans? Trump also talked about, not that I believe anything he says, but I mean, you have all these different, like when you get it from people who are actually there, and then you have these separate reports, and then it's like, well, you have the Havana syndrome thing from all the way back, and then you have these weird, unexplainable situations. It's not that hard to believe. And if you
it's not that hard to believe when
like,
you also consider that the Pentagon is working with Palantir. They're working with Tesla. They're working with Microsoft. They're working with Alphabet. It's not
I don't
just...
feel like it's defeatist of me to like believe that weapon exists. Like, I think it just exists.
No,
Like,
I don't think it's even a complicated weapon. It's not
I mean, it's
we've seen this idea, and I've read about this idea like years ago, and in their movies, like 30-year-old movies, you have this thing. I don't think they can do the same in Iran. If they did the same in Iran, khalas. It's good for the United States if they did the same in Iran. I will not defend anything. That's one. Second, Iran is different. If Iran, they have their own weapons and they manufacture, and we saw that the missiles that hit Tel Aviv and Haifa and that crossed many layers of defenses of American, Israeli, and Arabian, and even European defenses, they were purely made in Iran. And we saw that the Russians used Iranian weapons in their war against Ukraine. So Iran is different playground than
it's complete. It's complete.
Than Venezuela. Yeah, and also if you want to think about it, if they want to go to Tehran and Tehran is in the north, they have to cross all the way from the Persian Gulf to the north, because in the north there's sea and there's the Russians there, and this is difficult geographically. It's difficult. It's unreasonable, unless they want to do it from Azerbaijan, for instance, which I think is somehow impossible, because Azerbaijan is a very small country and it will be hit very hard from the Iranians. That's one. And I have to mention stuff, yani you said several things that Marandi said, although I don't agree with. I know he's well informed about Iran, but for instance, he said that Iran will close the Hormuz Canal, and it will be catastrophic for the world. To be honest, it will be catastrophic to Asia and not to the world. For China and for India and for Korea and for these countries, because Iran exports to China mainly and to other countries that are not Western countries. And also, if we take Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar and Kuwait, all of these countries, their major importer is China, India, South Korea, and other Asian countries. So, and that's what exactly the Americans want. I hope Iran will not do this mistake and close the Hormuz Strait. If this war was like in the 90s, yes, close it, and every single Western country will scream. But currently, no, they already fixed that, or not unfortunately, they fixed that now. The largest producer of oil is the United States, and the United States will not be affected as people think if the Hormuz canal is closed or passage.
No. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not going to be the US that's going to be hurt by that.
Yeah. 100%.
Europe
Not
is going to be
even-
China.
Yeah,
And the
little
Persian
bit
countries,
Europe also,
Gulf.
because currently what the Americans, what they do is that they want most of the electricity of their the countries that they influence. They love to let them sign with General Electric, and they love gas more than oil to produce electricity, because also they are one of the largest producers of gas. And we saw what happened in Europe, and now the Europeans are importing from the US. So the US they maintain their hegemony over their energy also. So that's one that I wanted to clarify about what Marandi said also. And we have to know that what will happen to Iran, still we don't really know what will happen. They will like carpet bomb in one day and claim it a victory. They will go a long war. They want to assassinate, for instance, as Israel did, but assassinate more people, the head of Iran and the president and this stuff. And also we have to acknowledge that this is not only done for the sake of Israel. The game is bigger than that. Trump posted an article last week which also details what he thinks, and the new doctrine of the United States, which focuses on China. And for them, China used to import oil from Venezuela, and now they can't, because even if Venezuela has not fallen, they created the atmosphere for the United States to stop and to hijack any tanker that's going from Venezuela and this region to China. And they are trying to do the same in to Iran. And in the paper, they say that 30% of the oil goes to China, and they pay less to Iran, and around 15% comes from Venezuela. And in the paper, they say that our fellow Arab countries, they cover 35%. And in the paper, they say in a phone call, we can hold this. So in the imagination or in the objectives of the United States and Trump, that if they stop Iran from exporting and they change the regime, or not change the regime, but they create the atmosphere to stop any shipment coming out from Iran going to China, and then they can ask their fellow friends Arabs to stop exporting to China, and now Venezuela is done for them, then they control 75% of the oil going to China, and they want to force the world again to buy in petrodollars, to use the dollars.
That's
And
exactly what they're doing
yeah.
in Venezuela, Karim. Exactly what you're describing.
yeah,
Because
no.
what we need to understand about Venezuela, let me just jump in with this idea very quickly, is that the US, like a good gangster organization with like a good mafia, what they did is they forced themselves into the Venezuelan oil trade as a middleman that nobody needed, nobody asked for. But they saw that Venezuela had managed over the years, thanks to Iranian, Chinese, and Russian help, to overcome the effects of the sanctions, to boost their oil production, to boost their economy, etc. Seeing this, what do they do now? They come in and they say, we are going to sell your oil for you. The oil you've been selling to China, we are going to sell it to China as well, but not at the discounted prices. We're going to sell it at market price. And you will get a cut of that, but then that money can only be spent in the US. This is mafia tactics, 101, the Donald Trump mafia. So what you're describing, Karim, about cutting the flow of oil to China, may not even be about cutting the flow of oil. May be about, again, what they did in Venezuela, taking it over, and they having the hand on the nozzle, or whatever you may want to call it. Let's move on, guys, very quickly, because there's other topics
think
here
we have to.
in relation to Iran, and I want to hear your thoughts in particular. A few hours ago, the Yemeni armed forces led by Ansar Allah released a video of the takeover of a British tanker 2 years ago. But they also issued I don't know if we can call it a veil threat, to be honest with you, of what could happen to U.S. warships entering the region, entering West Asian waters. At the same time, Kataib Hezbollah in Iraq issued a statement, which was way more overt than whatever Ansar Allah said, in which they said, prepare for war. Just all the mujahideens, all of the fighters of the resistance in Iraq, prepare for war if Iran is attacked. So the lines are being drawn very clearly, and now we know that what the Iraqi militias, the Kataib Hezbollah, which is, I believe, the biggest one, and Ansar Allah also have put themselves on the map again. For the part of Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Secretary General Naim Qassem spoke recently, and he took actually a much more measured approach than either one, but did leave the door open, although, there's still questions of exactly what he meant. What do you guys make about this?
For the Iraqis, I mean, the problem is here, if we have a situation where, God forbid, Iran's supreme leader is targeted and assassinated, as we've mentioned before on this show, this is like the equivalent of, or even worse than, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm a Christian, targeting the Pope, but for Shia Islam, this is an authority. This is someone that millions and millions around the world, follow. So it's not really to be taken lightly. So you have the Secretary General of Kataib Hezbollah, who is Abu Hussein al-Hamidawi, if I'm not mistaken, saying, like you said, prepare basically for comprehensive war in support of and in backing the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is the fortress and pride of the Ummah, which for more than 4 decades has stood alongside the oppressed and all just causes of the Ummah of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, without regard to sect, color, or race. So today, the forces of misguidance among the Zionists of the earth and their tyrants are gathering in an attempt to subjugate it, indeed to destroy it and demolish all moral and ethical constraints across the face of the globe. As we stress the necessity of supporting it by the forces of the Axis and backing it with that of they are able, we affirm that this will not be a picnic, but you will taste in the most severe forms of it. Anyway, for me, the Iraqis were, during the genocide in Gaza at its height, they had a support front going for a while. They had some successful drone operations. They were targeting US bases in Iraq, and then suddenly they stopped. And as far as I'm concerned, that's because Iran asked them to stop. Now, it would make sense that the Iraqis would escalate in a situation where Iran is targeted. If the circumstances change. Now, a lot of people argue with me about this. No, it was not Iran and blah, blah, blah. No, it was Iran that asked the Iraqis to stop. Otherwise, the Iraqis would have kept going until the very end, or at least for as long as Lebanon's Hezbollah kept going. So if I'm sorry to say it, I mean, usually I see the different players of the axis of resistance as having agency to a certain degree, especially when it comes to, let's say, Yemen or Lebanon's Hezbollah even. But the Iraqis, I see it to a much lesser extent. I think they don't have as much agency as people would like to believe. I'm not belittling them, but there's limited capabilities and limited agency there. So it could make sense that a fatwa for jihad would be issued in the event of the assassination of the Iranian supreme leader. And we would see, even though also Iraq has to play this balance like Lebanon does, you have all of these different government parties, you have the US pressure, you know what I mean? It's not like in Sana'a where Ansar Allah controls the government and that's it, or so you have we can see them activate again and try to navigate all this pressure and target bases or other sites in the event that Iran is targeted. But people are talking a lot about, yes, all of Iran's like proxies, as they call them, like will get involved in the war to support Iran. Like, I don't necessarily think that's true. Like, yes, Iran can be compromised. Yes, Iran can have its air defenses taken out. Yes, Iran has to withstand a lot, but also in a way, like, Iran is a big boy. So I don't think Iran is like waiting for Lebanon, for example, Hezbollah and Lebanon to come to its aid. I think it's more the idea of the thinking behind, being united in the region. And the Iraqis, I do see getting involved even more than Lebanon's Hezbollah. So I just wanted to say that. The Yemenis definitely, I mean, the Yemenis will open a support front for anybody. It's amazing. The Yemenis are incredible. The Yemenis will open, the Yemenis have carried out operations not only in support of Gaza, but in response to Israeli attacks on the southern suburb of Beirut in Dahi. The Yemenis would open a support front for Iran, and it's more about the principle than what can the Yemenis do to help Iran though? Like, no, it's the principle, of having like a united alliance that's been taken a lot of blows over the past years, but nevertheless, you can see some actions there. So I don't completely rule it out. I'm just not sure about the agency of the Iraqis. I mean, it would have to be, because they're also under a lot of US pressure. No, it's not just about whether Iran tells them they can activate their resistance groups or not. It's also about the US pressure and the threats and everything that's going on with that. But yeah, that's my take.
We need to look a bit deeper also at the situation in Iraq. And this is something that we have been, kind of alluding to for months now. We never really get too deep into the topic of Iraq, but now we really must. Because now the threats are the threats from the US are very direct. They are saying, we are going to choke you economically. We're not going to allow you to use your oil money, which Karim always loves to explain here to us, that it's controlled fully by the United States. They are saying, we're not going to let you access this if these the Hashd al-Shaabi aligned parties, the parties aligned with these anti-terror groups trained by Iran, also known as the Popular Mobilization Units, if they are part of the next government. At the same time, just yesterday, the Coordination Framework, which is this coalition of Shia majority parties in the Iraqi parliament, most of them with ties to the Hashd, have said they have picked Nouri al-Maliki, former Iraqi prime minister, and also, described widely as a pro-Iran figure, to be the next prime minister of Iran. Something that even I think I saw a headline a few hours ago about like Marco Rubio contacting Baghdad and just wagging his finger and being like, that's not the leader we want. Look to Syria. We want a Julani. We want another Julani in Baghdad. I'm sure that's the plan, right? So Iraq really is a country that has been out of the spotlight for a bit, but it's obvious that with all of these threats against Iran, they're going to be just like shoved right in. And with all of that in mind, Karim, what do you make of all of this?
I think they don't even need to threaten Iraq. I think it's a done deal. I think if the policy of the United States is the same policy that Trump established, meaning after he finishes his term and the policy stays the same, I think it's over for Iraq. Meaning if with war or without war, the United States will take the money of Iraq and nobody can do anything. Just 2 days ago, Germany, many voices in Germany started to ask or to demand the country to get back the gold that's in the United States. And I doubt they will be able to do that. I'm just saying that because if the Americans feel that their economy is not stable enough or the military is being weakened, I think they will take every single gold and account of any country and steal their weapons, as they did with Russia. Yani Russia is the second strongest country. Yani I was born, and every single book, analysis, and military website say that Russia is the second strongest country, and thus they took their money. They they forced the planes to land. They put all the yachts and the ships across Europe, mainly in Italy. So they did what they wanted to do. So what about Iraq, that's been occupied since 2003, and Germany, that is considered a very strong ally for the United States, and they are not even allowed to see if their gold is in the reserves in New York. And imagine this. So I think whether there is a war or no, the ultimate goal is to steal or take the money of Iraq, because the Iraqis, they are doing nothing. They are fully, not all of them, but for me, I talk to some people, most of the Iraqis, or more than 50% of the Iraqi, are brainwashed now by the American media that's being fed since 2003. And they succeeded in Iraq as they did in Japan. Yani for instance, if you now ask maybe a Japanese, what do you think about Hiroshima and Nagasaki nuclear bombs that fell on Japan, they will tell you, it was necessary to end the World War II. Now, if you ask an Iraqi, what do you think about the lie that led to 1 million Iraqi killed? They will tell, it was necessary to get rid of Saddam Hussein or something like this. So I don't believe in, unfortunately, in Iraq. I am an Arab and I studied about Iraq, and I know many Iraqis, and I even memorized many Iraqi poets, poetry and this stuff, but unfortunately I don't believe that the Iraqis can do anything. They are fully controlled, and as Sima said, they used to make some operations, and Iran halted this operation, and this is a mistake from Iran. I think the strategic patient was a failed mindset, and if they didn't change it till now, they will lose against the United States in less than 24 hours.
I wish I could put some comments up on the screen. Karim is a poet. I agree wholeheartedly.
A poet.
A poet. You're a poet. You're a master.
I think
of
we
words,
have to
Karim.
move on, but I just want to quickly comment on Iraq. Guys, we have so much more to talk about. It's going to be a long episode. But
It's
for
gonna be.
Iraq, there were two possibilities. Either Soudani would stay PM, or there's Nouri al-Maliki, who was, as you mentioned, nominated by the Shia-led coordination framework in Iraq. I am not an Iraq expert. I have studied history and last few decades, but I'm not an Iraq expert and will not pretend to be. But what I do know is that Maliki was also at one point a U.S. proxy. Then he displeased his U.S. masters at some point. And he has quite a problematic past when it comes to ISIS. The Interior Ministry was giving salaries at the time to tribes and factions fighting ISIS, and Maliki stopped those salaries. There's a lot of details. He's been accused of sectarianism. There's a lot of things. But Marco Rubio warning Iraq over Nouri al-Maliki seems like it could be propaganda to me. Like I think the U.S. is warning Iraq over much bigger things, and I'm not sure how much of a problem the U.S. has with Nouri al-Maliki, because Nouri al-Maliki is someone who is good with the U.S. and Iran. It is not someone who poses a threat to the U.S. as far as I know. Okay, and I could be wrong, but this is my take.
Yeah.
So the main issue with him also is corruption allegations, and if he's nominated, Muqtada Sadr, your favorite Esteban, will become more active again. And
Before retiring again, right? How many times has this guy retired?
Right. But so, yeah, I mean, I think, that's all I have to say, but I'm not sure about how, I mean, maybe they don't want Nouri al-Maliki. I mean, because he did kind of piss them off back in the day a little. But I'm not sure.
I mean, the situation is going to continue to deteriorate. Now you have this ISIS army next door, and they have so many options to do whatever they want. The imperialists. Go ahead, Karim. Because I do want us to move on to the next topic. Go ahead.
Thank you, Corby. He said he's the 250th like given today. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
We have almost
I just
400
want to-
people live.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Make sure to leave a like.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, I stole what Karim wanted to say.
Yeah, no. I just want. I read some of the comments. Yes, I agree. I'm not like an expert in Iraq. Yani all what I read is about Iraq. But I've seen thousands of Iraqis. I don't know if you know, but here in Lebanon there's like hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, and where we are, yani you can bump into Iraqis every day, and we talk politics and we talk also poetry and this stuff. So. I'm not like imagining stuff I'm saying. I'm saying what actual Iraqis, and even businessmen Iraqis, and even poor Iraqis, and even refugees Iraqis that I met and what they told me. So,
Flower Power says, I always remember how furious he was. I think they're referring to Maliki when the shoe was thrown at Bush.
yeah.
So something also to keep in mind, right?
Literally.
Yeah, guys. Hala, let's move on. Let's move on to the next topic because I think I have the perfect segue here, actually, Sima.
Great,
because
but just quickly, 384 people live, like you said, that's almost 400 guys. Usually we have only between like 160 and 200 something live viewers at a time watching our news roundup. So this is very cool. It's almost
this is
double
very
the number.
Amazing.
It's my beard.
Please
Karim's
consider
poetry.
supporting
It's
the
Karim's
cradle.
poetry,
And please, if you are new here, just stick around and see if you like it or not.
No, you're
We're
gonna
so
love it. You're
happy.
gonna love it. Just make sure to hit that like button. If you came here for a reason, you know what the reason is. Okay, guys. So Sima, you were talking about the propaganda, right? You mentioned propaganda, and I know there's a topic that you really want to dissect a bit here on the roundup, and it's the framing, right? To finish up with the topic of Iran and move on to the next important topic, which is Gaza. The New York Times, Thomas Friedman, put out an opinion piece over the weekend that was, embarrassing is a kind word to describe the framing that he took, saying that the ICE executions, we cannot call them anything else, the executions of US citizens by ICE resembles Hamas. When it's obvious
Insane.
to anyone with a working brain cell that ICE agents are acting like Israeli soldiers. And hey, they're being trained by Israeli soldiers. We've known that for a very long time, that this is who is training the Donald Trump's Gestapo. So with that being said, Sima, what are your thoughts about Thomas Friedman and his
First of
column?
all, Thomas Friedman is a joke. I wish I could swear, but I'm not going to swear. He is an actual a Zionist joke. This is like a grotesque column, okay? It's the New York Times. Thomas Friedman's claiming that Minneapolis and Gaza now share the same violent language. And then he proceeds, as you mentioned, Esteban, to compare ICE agents to Hamas. This is literally, again, this is the second time I use this word today, obscene. And there's another, by the way, mainstream piece that I'm going to address later. I will also call it obscene. So basically, Friedman opens by listing the killings in Minneapolis, Renee Good, Alex Preddy, etc., both shot by the ICE forces. And then he collapses those events into Gaza, Hamas, and October 7 as if they're all part of the same like moral universe in some way. And this is like, I don't know what to call it other than like, I don't know. But let's be clear, the killings by the ICE agents, of course, didn't happen in a vacuum. However, they also don't represent any kind of Hamasification of US law enforcement. They represent normalization of militarized policing, of course. So he fixates on the masks, guys, like the masks, like, he's like, oh, they're criminals, they wear masks, and it means they're hiding something, and Hamas is the same. And it's like, by the way, Israeli soldiers wear those too, by the way. But what he refuses to say is that, as you guys know, I'm sure our viewers know this, but we have to. It's literally like he is the opposite of reality. Like that is what his column is. U.S. police departments, federal agencies, and ICE have been actively trained in Israeli military and security doctrine. This is a documented policy, and there are programs that were organized by the ADL, by the JINSA, DHS, FBI delegations. U.S. enforcement agencies have studied Israeli methods of border control in occupied Palestine, counterinsurgency, crowd control, surveillance, honed during the intifadas and other uprising, under permanent brutal occupation, crowd suppression tactics, surveillance, as I mentioned, checkpoint logic, population management, all of these things, militarized response to civilians. So, of course, this migrated, back to you. So the empire exports violence and then imports it home, as the people have been calling it recently, imperial boomerang. They like this term a lot. So when ICE agents are shooting people in Minneapolis, and you have someone who is allowed to publish an article saying America is becoming like Hamas, you know that the world has completely gone to shit.
It's a joke.
Okay.
Karim, I sent a picture. Can you please put it on screen? And continue, Sim.
Yeah. So Friedman knows this, by the way. There's no way he doesn't know this. There's no way he doesn't know it. He just collapses it into like this false symmetry where Trump, Netanyahu, and Hamas are all like these terrible leaders addicted to violence. Because he smashes Netanyahu too, because he's like a liberal Zionist. Don't know how liberal, but yeah. So this moral equivalent is insane. Okay, and the masks. It's all about the masks.
He talks about masks.
Yeah.
And look at the new pictures of the Israeli defense forces.
Yeah. Imagine turning Gaza into a metaphor for the ICE, like the unrest and the ICE killings and all. I mean, how? I mean.
It really takes, like an epic level of brain rot to even try to make that connection when the other connection is there, is apparent, it's been announced, it happens. They are trained. Israeli soldiers train ICE agents. They have the same tactics, even the framing. The fact that they're calling the victims terrorists or insurrectionists, it's the same thing when Israel calls every single living person who has been killed in Gaza a terrorist, a Hamas terrorist, right? They call the babies a future terrorist. It's the same media framing. Even the Nazi Barbie, Kristi Noem, was saying chastising reporters, right? Saying, why are you using that framing? Why don't you state the facts? The facts is that this man was a terrorist. What's this? What's that? What's whatever. I mean, guys, even the Atlantic had a headline this weekend, and I was a bit shocked, honestly, which just read, yes, this is fascism. The Atlantic, an outlet that has never seen a war they didn't like, is outright saying it, what we all knew already for a very long time, to be honest. But yeah, to your point, Sima, I mean, embarrassing to say the least, this column.
Yeah. Where Pilgrim says, don't read Friedman unless you want to lose brain cells. Somebody else says Friedman is a nobody and doesn't deserve the time. No one reads newspapers anymore. Please change the topic. I disagree. I think Friedman represents something way bigger than himself. And I also disagree that people don't read newspapers anymore. You'd be surprised. I think that this is a statement that comes from you expecting that everybody is like you. It's simply not true that people don't read these articles anymore. It is simply not true. But he's definitely a nobody. But I mean, the fact that something like this is being published and people do read these articles every day, all over the world, whether you like it or not. So this is a thinking that transcends Friedman publishing in the NYT. Like this is the kind of thing that we're seeing more and more of everywhere.
This is liberal brain rot, like Zionist propaganda, for sure, completely. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, Karim, or we can just get into the topic of Gaza directly, because the situation.
I don't have. I'm not following that much what's happening inside the United States, and I see videos now and there, but I don't go deep as Sima does. I just watch it through TikTok because there's many things in our region that requires attention, and there's only 24 hours a day.
I don't go deep either. I just know Alex Preddy was killed, but when they made it up, when ICE is trained by Israel and then they make it about Hamas, it's gonna get it's something I'm gonna look into. But as far as following a domestic U.S. Events very closely, that's not me. We have someone else on the team, my team, who does that.
Today I just knew that Minneapolis, where things are happening, the mayor is, if I'm not mistaken, he's the mayor or the head of the county or whatever they name it, is the husband of the former candidate for the presidency. What was her name?
Who? Kamala?
No, you mean the governor. Yeah, the governor of Minnesota.
So me knowing Trump or how I talk about Trump, I think he's solely doing this also as a revenge, because he's going after every single person who stood in front of him, and this person.
Well, I mean, it also shows what's been happening, the inoperance, the complete inability and complicity of the Democrats, right? Because they keep killing people on the streets, and the governor that this guy was is sending National Guard to, quell protests instead of trying to kick out ICE. But I think we've spent enough time in this situation at
They
the
are
end of the day.
destroying the Western values.
Hey, of course, Karim. Those very, the ones we all outside hate, and that's why we hate the US. In Gaza, a very interesting news item a couple of days ago that we covered at the Cradle. I hope you have the article, Karim. I don't know if we sent it. But it's about the first, what do they call it? The first planned community, right? The first planned community for Palestinians in Gaza, which will be bankrolled by the UAE. In real talk, the first ghetto for the survivors of this genocide that will be, first of all, approved by Israel. Second of all, controlled by Israel. And it's a truly horrific thing. It's a truly horrific thing what they are planning to do with this, we have to call it what it is, this ghetto for the survivors of a genocide that includes biometric scanning to enter and to leave, which includes constant security checkpoints, which includes a digital wallet. Interesting, right? A digital wallet with shekels that will be controlled by the Israeli occupation, so that these chosen few Palestinians will only be allowed to spend their money or use their finances in the way that Israel determines. A horrific situation and a central part of Jared Kushner's master plan for Gaza. Remember that last week, the master plan of the Board of Peace? The UAE is behind it. The UAE is the one shelling out the money.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen reports of this plan, but now we know that the UAE will be, bankrolling it, which is just another step in the journey of the horrors that they are planning for the Gaza Strip. So a lot of it sounds like the reports we've discussed on here before, does it not? I think it does.
No, it falls in line with what we've known since October 2023 and the leaked Israeli intelligence documents.
Yeah, I mean, so Palestinians would only be allowed to live there if they submit to biometric data collection and security vetting and constant surveillance, and entry and exit would be controlled through checkpoints, and every resident, like you said, would have an electronic shekel wallet. This is insane. So this means that Israel's monitoring all financial transactions. So this is population management, which is a term I used just a few minutes ago.
Leave it there, Karim. The master plan, the image of Gaza. I mean, it's also,
and even if the city isn't fully built, the plan basically gives Israel political cover to keep seizing the land, erase property claims, permanently displace Palestinians, and so basically, you can have forcible transfer. You can erase, landowners' ability to prove ownership. You can. It's legitimizing ethnic cleansing, basically, even through this plan, right? Which is UAE has continuously put its resources towards legitimizing ethnic cleansing and accelerating it. So it's a real estate-driven, security-first, testable model, blueprint for controlling a population that Israel has already tried to destroy. Not over the past 2 years, but over the past nearly 100 years. And so the fact that this is being discussed openly with now specifically we know UAE funding tells you exactly where they want this to be heading, right? It's just...
it's mass ethnic cleansing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's also, and this comes hand in hand with the report that Israel is going to only allow 50 Palestinians to re-enter Gaza per day, while, what was the word they used, this euphemism? Well, encouraging, yes, to encourage emigration, right? To encourage Palestinians to live en masse while only allowing 50 to return per day. And according to this report, which I can't remember what the source was exactly, they were talking about 100,000 Palestinians are already at this point outside of Gaza, had to flee or were expelled or were, in one way or another, they left Gaza. And now if they want to return just these 100,000, you're talking about years, maybe even decades at the rate that Israel is talking about, for allowing to re-entry. And it's very concerning, this thing in particular about the first ghetto in Gaza, because it's everything we have been hearing for a while now about population control, exactly what you're saying, Sima. And we have already seen that everything that they've done in Gaza is in one way or another being exported, being sold, and being used in other places, from the streets of Minnesota to the streets of Caracas, to the streets of, to what's happening in Sudan and elsewhere, whatever happens in Iran. This stuff continues to spread. And it's like, It's Palantir, right? It's Palantir, it's Microsoft, it's Azure, the Azure platform that is being used for the biometrics, for the facial recognition. I mean, big tech is neck deep in the construction of these. I again forgot the euphemism they use. These control communities or something like that, right? That they want to say is, oh yeah, where Palestinians are going to live in peace.
Yeah.
What do you think? Go ahead.
There's just the important update before we keep talking about the plans for Gaza. But just to update the viewers, yesterday Netanyahu's office was saying we won't open Rafah crossing until we find the body of the last remaining a captive Israeli soldier in Gaza, and they did today. They found Ran Gvili's body. They claim he was killed on the day of 7 October 2023, and then his body was abducted by the Palestinian resistance. Now let's see what will happen. He's been found. Will there be a new excuse? Will they only let pedestrians through? Will they let medical patients through? What will the new obstacle be? I just want to point out very quickly before Karim goes that during the search operation, Israeli occupation forces exhumed and desecrated over 200 Palestinian graves looking for Ran Gvili in a cemetery east of Gaza City. And the Euromed human rights monitor said that this was total violation of the dignity of the dead, of course, creating serious risks for tampering with or disappearing remains. They have destroyed, in general now, just to tell you, more than 1/3 of Gaza's cemeteries in their entirety. They have caused severe psychological harm to families who remain uncertain about the fate of their loved ones remains, and this is deliberate desecration and attacks on burial sites. So to find this one soldier who the Palestinian resistance gave all the information they had on him to Israel, so that they could do over 200 graves desecrated and tampered with in search for this soldier, and I am almost positive that. They didn't say in their statement where they found him, but I am positive that it wasn't in one of those graves.
Sickening. It's really sickening. What do you make of these of the UAE's funding of this community, Karim?
Yeah, it's expected.
Casual UAE project.
It's casual. Nothing to say.
Nothing new. No shocks here.
Nothing new. But what I want to say is nobody also stood against what the UAE wants to do. This is also a big topic that nobody usually talks about. When these decisions are taken, there is no counter decisions, there is no alternatives, there is no country or a party who says no, let's do this. But this is a big problem also in the Arab world.
Very true.
Arab and Muslim world, this is a big problem. The United States wants something. Any country that proposes anything, if the United States says yes, everybody should follow. This is a big problem. We will not be civilized or respected among other nations and in history unless we find such a solution. This is a problem not only from Gaza or from the Palestinians, it's a core problem in the Arab world. The same applies on the Western Sahara. The same applies in Syria, for instance. Nobody knew what would happen in Syria. There is no logic or a roadmap of what's happened, what happened and what's happening in Syria before and after Bashar al-Assad. For instance, what we will do with the Kurds? What will the Kurds do? For instance, the Shias in the whole region do not feel safe. There's no other country, a Sunni country, that comes and tells you, "Oh, we will work on this." For instance, or the Christians that fled Iraq, for instance, after the invasion, which is wow. Imagine were Christians in Iraq under Saddam Hussein, and when the American invaded, there's no Christians. These problems are accumulating, and all the reasons is the United States, and because of the Gulf countries that follows it. I think I know I'm not in the place to say this, although I said it before, and I don't know what people are suffering and the pressure that were exerted in Gazans and in Hamas and on the resistance. But for me, I will not sign a deal with Trump and Israel giving all the prisoners before getting what I want. Meaning that I apologize. I don't know what the pressure that was exerted on them and the suffering they had. But for me, I would have agreed to free the prisoners that are still alive, and I will release the prisoners that are dead afterwards. يعني the same happened in Lebanon. It's not only about Hamas. يعني in Lebanon, they made this 60 days that now is extended to 1 and a year and a half, and Israelis are bombing Lebanon and killing people, and the government is happy of what's happening, and the media is yes, Israel is finishing Hezbollah, yalla, bomb more. That is a problem because Hezbollah signed a very weak deal, and يعني even now we don't see the deal. يعني Israel comes out and they say we are bombing Lebanon because it's part of the deal. But where's the deal? How you signed a deal? Why you signed a deal? For instance, so this is something also in the Arabs from the resistance and Arabs that are also against Israel. They have a problem that Israelis that they can't take on war, they take it in paper and by signing. And unfortunately, in 2026, this still applies.
There's two aspects to this, just very quickly. I agree with you 100%, Karim. However, the reality that some people do not want to come to terms with, and people are not going to like what I say here, is that Hamas and the other Palestinian resistance factions reached such a terrible point that they were left with no leverage and no other option. This is the reality. And there is the aspect of Turkey's grip on Hamas. Yani I saw in an interview by Hamas's Mohammed Nazal yesterday, my friend sent it to me, he's again pleading to the US to like talk to Hamas, and he's like, don't let Israel give you like the wrong impression of us, like we, like this kind of idea of like appealing to America and trying to bypass Israel, like when they released Idan Alexander and the US, Trump lied to Hamas and said that they would release the aid, but give them aid and let in this and that, and they didn't. And still you have, and this is for me Turkish pressure. There's nothing else it can be. Hamas, a very respectable resistance group, has been manipulated by Qatar and Turkey in many ways for decades. This is the truth. It is a US and Israel who approved of Hamas's offices being in Qatar. It is the US and Israel who were fine with having these outposts, Turkey and Qatar, dealing with Hamas. No, that doesn't mean Hamas is an Israeli proxy, and it doesn't mean that Israel created Hamas. Those things are false, and one day soon I will make a video debunking that for those who think, the conspiracy theorists who think that. But
So
the
many
point
of them.
is that Hamas really was left with no choice at all. And so what they did was wrong, but they were at a point where there was nothing else they could do. Again, it's a hot
But
take.
what about
People aren't
Hezbollah?
going to want to hear this because I'm seeing people criticizing Hezbollah all the time. But like for Hamas, they say nothing. They act like everything went perfectly and Hamas won and Hamas is so great, but Hezbollah signed a bad deal. No one's talking about the bad deal Hamas was forced to sign. I don't judge. No one can judge anyone in Gaza. But I'm just saying, let's not pretend that Hamas won and signed this deal. It's not what happened. It's not what happened. And it's not even done yet. Yani there's a report that came out a few days ago that the Israelis want to launch more attacks on Hamas on the ruins of North Gaza because Hamas is still there and rebuilt its northern brigade and rebuilt I don't know what, and they're erasing the land, erasing Beit Hanun, erasing completely. And they're saying there's no withdrawal. So there isn't even a deal of withdrawal, it's a front. But what else, I don't know what else the resistance could have done, to be honest with you. But imagine they're erasing, and they're claiming they will launch the attacks because Hamas is still active in North Gaza, but the real reason is to just raise the land, basically. You know what I mean?
what they say,
The engineering units are systematically flattening everything. Everything, and this isn't being done. This is being done to make the area uninhabitable permanently. Again, they openly admitted they will not withdraw, and Trump's so-called peace plan stipulates that they withdraw, but they won't. Again, so we all know this is the Trump's plan, which Hamas agreed to, is a cover for not stopping the war, and yet Hamas agreed to it. So Karim is very valid to criticize, like I wouldn't sign a deal with the US, but at the same time, I don't see that anyone was left with any other choice. It doesn't make Karim any less right. But yeah, so they're saying the northern command structure has been rebuilt, and they're going to attack again, and the fighters are always nearby, and the tunnels, and they're still intact, and all of this. The area is far from cleared, and so they say that they need to defeat the resistance, but again, they're reshaping the land. The report, that YNET report that I'm referring to, admits there is no funding, okay, no timeline, and no plan. So what does that tell you about talk of rebuilding Gaza, talk of no, Israel's just preparing for permanent control over the ruins, not return of civilian life, not return of reconstruction, none of these things. So when we're going to criticize Hezbollah, oh, look how weak Hezbollah has become, look how blah, blah, we have to point out also the reality, not criticize Hamas. Gaza went through a genocide that people could not take anymore. But it's not about criticizing, it's about when you want to point out Hezbollah's mistakes, you have to point out that the reality of the deal that Hamas signed doesn't mean that you're claiming you would do better if you were in their place or anything like that. But this is the reality of the situation, Yani. Let's be honest. I'm not. I can't. They call me Queen of Tears, right? On this show, I can't pretend that like Hamas won. Hamas. There were epic battles that were fought. Hamas is fully capable of inflicting harm on the Israeli military, but it's simply the Israeli military did not care this time around. That's how I see it.
They took it as an existential threat, and they acted as such.
I just wanted to point that out. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I subscribe what Sima said. It's very obvious that this is an impossible situation for the people in Gaza, and it just keeps getting worse, and everyone just sits by and watches. And this is something that is gonna, this is what they're gonna try to do to continue to spread this misery. I mean, you look at what's happening in the West Bank, which is also completely underreported, and which is also completely catastrophic. What's happening in the south of Lebanon as well. We're witnessing the slow burn, ethnic cleansing.
Major escalation.
It's bigger than that. It's bigger than that for me. And a whole civilization will not exist in a few years if you continue like this. There will be nothing called Arabs. There will be no heritage from Arab anything. Khalas. Yani the last Arab country that you can say it was an Arab country, now people will come to the comments, was Syria. Yani ignore Bashar for once, please, and just think that I know they can. Just think that Syria was the only Arab country that is against Israel. It was one. That's it, and they took it, and now it's ISIS. So if you continue like this, I think it's bigger than Hamas. It's bigger than Hezbollah. It's bigger than even Palestine. A whole region that existed for thousands of years. A whole body of people, a whole heritage will disappear. As the Mongols disappeared and as whatever Ottomans disappeared and now they are only Turkey. If we continue like this, we will all disappear as ethnicity and as heritage and as history. And there will be no Arab country. And that's what they are feeding everybody. For instance, now in Lebanon, I'm sorry I'm saying this because English-speaking people will not know what's happening. Now the Egyptians, they have since years, they are saying they are pharaohs, they are not Arab anymore. In Lebanon, they are not Arab, now we are Phoenicians. You ask an Iraqi, he will tell you I am a Kildani or whatever, they go to 2000 years ago. And for instance, the Arabs in the Arabian Peninsula, they say, no, these are northern people, northern Arab and Eastern Arab. And so that's what's happening. I'm just putting very fast examples because I want people to know they are destroying history and they're destroying heritage. And eventually they will say the only people that belongs to this land are the Israelis, which they don't. And
that's the plan.
I think this is part of the plan, and it's fully, it's highly successful. I haven't seen something more successful. Of course, thanks to the Gulf money and the Gulf media, and for Mr. Sisi.
I think it's not. I think to be a realist does not mean to be a defeatist. And I
exactly.
think
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, we need to really make that line very clear. I see a bunch of people in the comments being, like, oh, the battle is lost. This is so depressing, etc.
Yeah, that's not what we're saying.
No, but it is. It's depressing, let me say this. It is depressing, of course. We are witnessing more than one genocide at once to the complete inability of all of these institutions that we have relied upon for decades, I guess, or their myth at least, just be completely torn down. But if you lose a battle, if you lose 100 battles, that doesn't mean you're gonna lose the war. And what Karim is talking about in particular, and here I'm gonna put on my my Sharmina wig for a moment, and be the one that kind of brings in a bit of the hope. But the truth is that this would be, not just a multi-year project. You're talking about social re-engineering on a scale that I don't think has been achieved before. They're going to try to use, they've been using social media, they've been using the television for so long. Now they have AI. They have so many ways to kind of, like really drill this into people's heads, to shed their identity, as Karim is saying. But there's always going to be resistance. And in particular, in West Asia, there's always going to be resistance, because for resistance, you need to have a thick societal net, right? So there needs to exist commonality among neighbors, among a community. This is what Hezbollah is. This is what Hamas is. This is what Ansar Allah is. They come out of the mosques because the mosques provide this cohesion, right? This unity, this sense of community. The same could be said for a church. The same could be said for anything, really. Like even in, for example, in Venezuela or in Cuba, you have it on a political sense, right? The defense of the revolution, the defense of your homeland, the defense of your neighbor. They can't eradicate that, human beings will resist one way or another. And the project is going to fail one way or another.
They're flimsy plans.
Fail. Yeah, this is going to fail because of, you can talk about the economy, you can talk about the emerging powers, you can talk about many other things. But at the end of the day, this is more than they can chew. So unfortunately, that doesn't mean like, oh yes, at the end of the day, we'll all be happy, like singing Kumbaya and running towards the rainbow. We're gonna experience so many bigger losses than the ones we have already experienced.
True.
But so will they. So will they.
Yeah.
That's, you put it very well.
I just want to give a very fast analogy how I think and why maybe people think I'm defeatist. There's a difference if I have a son who got a very bad grade and at school. I will not tell you, oh Habibi, oh bravo. That's what you want me to do? No, I will tell him, I want him to acknowledge that he failed, and now you failed. You have to study better to do better next time.
True.
That's why what I always say, the strategic patient was a catastrophe.
And
okay?
you have a right to have that opinion. You have a right to have that
Sorry.
opinion.
Yeah,
Your
of
mic's
course.
off, Sima.
Your mic was off. Say it again.
That's. I was saying you have a right to have that opinion.
Yeah, of
And like it's okay. That's the whole thing about like also this news roundup is that we all have different opinions. Like it's just, you have a right to have the opinion that strategic patience was a catastrophe and it failed, and someone else has a right to say no, strategic patience is the best choice for the powers in the region, and it just depends. It's fine. It's also the idea if I come and say the deal Hamas signed is not a real deal and it's just a cover for continuing genocide, that it doesn't mean all is lost. It means I'm pointing out the reality of the situation. It's like there's the ultimate outcome, which no one can predict, but we can see Israel and the US on decline in many ways. And there is the current phase that we are in. Are we going to pretend that everything is going amazing just because people can't can't engage with these difficult realities? I'm against that.
Yeah, also, here we have, you often see me and Sima and Sharmeen, but there's different people to my left, to in other rooms, and we always argue, and that was before Bashar al-Assad vanished. I always argue, and Sima, if she remembers, and Bashar al-Assad should sit with Erdogan, you remember?
Yeah,
everybody was against me. I told them.
Your mic is off, Sima, again. I could barely understand what you're saying.
It's better. So let me continue.
Go ahead.
I always told them that Bashar al-Assad should sit with Erdogan. And often they tell me, no, why should he sit? Look, Turkey. I told them Turkey is a natural, geographical partner or neighbor to Syria. They have to sit together, even whatever Turkey did. But for instance, the Israelis and the Zionists that came from Europe and from all over the world and sat in occupied Palestine, they are not natural. The borders are not natural. Okay, I will die and not, for instance, talk to them. But why in Turkey? They told me Turkey did 1, 2, 3 and whatever. And eventually, look what happened. He vanished because he didn't sit with...
that is very true. I completely agree with you, Karim.
With Bashar al-Assad. And previously, I always tell them Syria should do something on October 7 so he can create regain credibility, whatever it is. And then they told me they will destroy, the Israeli airplanes will destroy the Syrian army. And my answer was, they would do so on both ways. They will do it now, and they will do it after 2 years, because Syria can't stand more than 2 years with this economy. And that's exactly what happened. Back then, I was defeatist, but unfortunately, I was right. And now, I hope I am right, and people will listen, or not only because of me, because this is the general thinking of the region now. People that I know, they are thinking like that. People that I know, they are saying, why Hezbollah is not doing anything inside Lebanon, for instance, because we acknowledge this is a mistake. Many people will tell me, oh, you know more than Hezbollah. No, but I have a brain to think. I don't follow a cleric. I don't follow an anchor on TV. I have my own brain to think, and I collect data, and I look into maps, and I read from here, and I read from there. And I know that whatever I am reading is an opinion for another person. So I can create my own opinion.
Exactly. I mean, I agree with you so much, Karim. It's our responsibility, our personal responsibility, to make up our own minds, right? And to make our own decisions about what's happening and what needs to happen next. And this is something that, of course, we need to see also on the political sphere and even within the resistance forces. Guys, we've already gone very long. I want to thank everyone who has joined to watch us. And we're also doing very well with likes, so that worked. But guys, there's one last thing that we cannot leave without discussing.
There were such important items.
There's one in particular that I want to hear from Seema about, and is this Wall Street Journal article from a couple of days ago that claims that Ahmad al-Shara, also known as Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the self-proclaimed president of Syria, he went against U.S. diktats. He went against what the U.S. told him to do when he launched the offensive against the Kurdish forces in northeast Syria in the SDF. The title says it all. Syrian president called the U.S.'s bluff, and it paid off. What a daring man. What a daring man.
You have the link, right, Karim?
It's on screen right now.
Now someone in the comments is going to be like, oh, this doesn't matter. No one reads Wall Street Journal.
I just want to say one thing, and I will not comment anymore.
Please, because we're...
Yeah. Seema shared the link on our group yesterday, and the first thing I went to, I saw the writer, and I said the writer, and he was based in Turkey, and I closed that up.
You know what's funny is that the feature that the Cradle published is also by a Turkish writer, and it's the exact counter narrative. But I'll get to that. Go ahead. Esteban, what were you going to say?
No, I want to hear from you. Yeah,
so the U.S. is fawning over Ahmad al-Shara again, whitewashing, doing legitimization campaign in the Wall Street Journal. This is now a ritual in Western coverage, and I think it's important to address, because not everybody, some people still read the stuff. Some you need to, even if you have
this is mainstream media at the end, and this is their
even
framing.
If you put an X on it, I assume that like Cradle viewers have put an X on mainstream media. You still have to monitor what it is they're trying to do. You can't just be like, oh, I don't care about that. Why are you talking about that?
Yes.
So this is like the rehabilitation profile of Ahmad al-Shara, the story of Ahmad al-Shara, the tactician, the gambler, the pragmatist, the guy who outsmarted everyone. And that's what Wall Street Journal did with yesterday's piece. The framing is they're trying to tell you how to think, basically, not just what happened. So the article claims that he risked his relationship with Washington, and that the U.S. threatened sanctions. That the U.S. threatened sanctions if he moved to do an offensive on SDF and the Kurds, and yet Shara moved anyway, and he collapsed the U.S. back to SDF. He seized the territory all on his own, and he came out on the other side.
It paid off.
Still backed by the Trump administration. He came out on the other side, still backed by the Trump administration. So this is where, the Wall Street Journal wants you to believe that this was like a daring defiance of power, when if that were actually the case, you would not see them writing this way about him in the Wall Street Journal. And we know that. Look at the example of anyone else, whether it's Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, Haj Qasem Soleimani, Bashar al-Assad in certain situations, Abdel Malik al-Houthi, when you will not see in Wall Street Journal a rehabilitation profile for any of these men. Anyway, because when U.S. interests are actually threatened, U.S. media does not romanticize the one who's doing that. They don't have this hero narrative, which they've been pumping out relentlessly, nonstop. It's almost perverted. So it's laundering the transition. It's still going. It's normalizing the new order. And this is why the Cradle's reporting matters, and why you should support the Cradle, and why you should stick with the Cradle, because we may not be right on everything, but we do present other perspectives. We had a feature with that outlines the situation as actually the counter narrative to what this is claiming. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can't possibly believe that Ahmad al-Shara went against the U.S. interests in his offensive on North and Northeast Syria. There is no way on earth. So we have this feature by Musa Ozugurlu published on 21 January that shows that the Kurdish chapter in Syria wasn't collapsed by this like surprise brilliance by Ahmad al-Shara. It was closed through a US-led endgame that was agreed on in Paris, where Washington, Ankara, and Israel all agreed to close the Kurdish chapter and dismantle the illusion of a permanent Kurdish-US arrangement in Syria. For years, the US presence gave the Kurdish Autonomous Administration a state in everything but name. Then in the first week of January, this illusion was like completely dismantled through an agreement. And it was, of course, without Kurdish participation, which is very different than the Wall Street Journal's calling the bluff, fantasy. Because in this version, the shock isn't that Shara took the Northeast, it's that Washington had already decided to give up the Kurds, and the balance of power had been reorganized around a Turkey, Israel, US triangle. That's the reality, with Damascus functioning as basically the administrative center of these powers, believe it or not. And so it situates Shara in the larger regional context. This was a done deal, right? And the U.S. has agreed with Turkey. Turkey gets that area of Syria with no armed resistance to it in any way. So the point of bringing these two pieces together, which is WSJ and Cradle, is not to debate exactly, but it's just to show you that the only goal with the bullshit piece of the WSJ is to manufacture legitimacy. They've done it over and over again. Reuters loves doing it. NYT does it. This is not a reporting of events.
I mean,
this
Wall
is
Street
just
Journal.
preparing the audience. Yes.
Wall Street Journal, let me just quickly remind people, they just a couple of months ago published an op-ed by the illiterate leader of an ISIS-linked gang in Gaza that was stealing humanitarian aid to resell it in the black market under Israeli protection. Abu, what was his name? Shabab.
Wait.
The late.
Oh, yeah, the late. He's
the
dead.
late-
Oh,
yeah,
the
the guy
op-ed.
that-
Yeah.
Yeah. He wrote, right? He didn't know how to read or write, but the Wall Street Journal published an op-ed by this man. I can't believe I forgot his name. That's how irrelevant he was to history. He will remain as such
I
as
just
in
want to
his
add
moment with Shara as well. Go ahead, Karim.
No, I just
Oh, but
want-
Israel just said recently as well, like, we're backing them now. They are our proxies. There was a new report about how they give them weapons, cigarettes. They give them medical evacuations, the Gaza proxies, the Israeli proxies in Gaza. But they also said once all this is over, like, we're going to leave them to the dogs. Like they're admitting that, these
No.
guys will be left to be eaten up. Like Hamas will totally like have their way with them once Israel decides to drop them. That will happen. So, and they have no problem admitting that. And the U.S. does that with all its allies, and that's just how it is.
That is how it is.
Sorry, Karim.
Do you have any final thoughts, Karim?
Just
No,
the Shara
خلاص.
thing, the
You're
Shara
good?
thing.
Well, with that,
I'm
guys.
sad because Sima talked over me.
With
No,
that, guys,
but guys, there was another thing I didn't get to talk about. That you need go to Palestinian British surgeon and Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta on Twitter. Check out his recent tweets about how Doctors Without Borders (MSF) is handing over its staff list to Israel after Israel revoked its license in Gaza, and how dangerous this is in light of how many aid workers and health workers and medical and emergency workers have been executed systematically. It's a very important thing going on right
Yes,
now,
send
and it's
me
very
the link.
dangerous.
I will put it in the description.
so you
Yeah,
can find
just-
that in the description,
yeah.
guys.
I was kidding, and just the only thing that I wanted to add over Sima and the Kurds and the Syria issue is that Trump in a speech and in an interview after he was elected. Before he became the president, when he was elected and before Bashar al-Assad disappeared, he said our strategy would be that we should go out of Syria and we don't care what happens in Syria. And this adds on as evidence of what Sima is saying. Of course, Al-Julani or شو اسمه now? What is his name? Shara didn't stand and like, I will take this area. I don't care what the Americans do or say or whatever. It's illogical.
could have bombed him in like 3 seconds.
I saw someone said in the comments he was playing 5D chess completely. But
No,
guys,
he was-
we need
he was
to
playing
wrap it up.
basketball.
We need to wrap it up for this week. He was playing basketball. Yes, we need to wrap it up for this week. Thank you everyone who joined. I think this is the most live viewers we've had during the live podcast. So thank you everyone. Make sure to go check the interview with Mohamed Marandi. It was really good. And check out the other couple of interviews we already posted in Rock the Cradle, Alistair Crook and Kaborg Al-Masian. Also, please check out our Patreon, where you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle. Please support independent journalism, especially in these tough times. As I said at the very beginning of this episode, the drums of war are banging very, very loud, and they will not stop. And we need your help. We need your support. Thank you to everyone who's already become a patron. We continue to slowly but surely walk towards our goal. We will see you back on Thursday. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Sima. Thank you, Karim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
West Asia is always on the map, but rarely in its own voice. This region has been narrated by others for far too long. That's why the Cradle exists, to report from the region, not to speak over it.
Together, the United States
To tell stories with depth, precision, and no editorial leash. Because West Asia is more than just a theater of war. It's the corridor between continents, the energy artery of the world, the cradle of civilization. We don't take government orders. We don't serve corporate boards. We serve clarity, rarity, and rawness, no matter the risk. So if you believe this region deserves better than spin, support the people doing the legwork. Donate. Keep the Cradle independent.